Claudia Lara is a thought leader and founder of Your Joyful Center. She helps individuals expand to a better version of themselves, bringing more freedom, happiness, and a richer experience of being alive. After rising to a position as a CEO of an international company servicing over 48 countries, traveling the world, and accomplishing many things in her life, she still had a sense of, is this all there is, and is this what life is all about? That little voice guided her to do many studies of self-discovery, personal development, including over 6 years of university-level studies of the human energy field. She also met and studied with varied spiritual teachers, searching for what really moves us as human beings. She discovered her passions and meaning of life and found that there's a better way of living and an easier way to have what we really want. And now her passion is to help others stop the unnecessary suffering of stress, uncertainty, unwanted emotions, disease, and grief, and to find their true joy of living. She believes that abundance and fulfillment starts with yourself and connecting with a deeper sense of who you are, which is why she calls her company Your Joyful Center. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me and for the invitation for this time together.
Well, I hope that our listeners will be really excited about what you have to share, because you gave us a little idea of what made you decide to open Your Joyful Center, but, there had to be a little bit something else. I always say that women who get to midlife get to a point where they say, is that all there is? And what more is there for me? But you were younger than that. So tell us a little bit about what made you decide to do this.
Well, it seems that I always been a little bit ahead of my time so far. But yes, I always been very competitive and had a new way of thinking. And at the beginning, I thought success was what everybody said it was. You accomplish financial stability, you accomplish, family members, love. So I worked very hard for many years accomplishing those goals. And after 20 years in corporate, I became the CEO of an international company with 48 countries. A lot of responsibility. Work became easier, responsibility got bigger. But I still had the same feeling of emptiness. It was only a part of me, but there was this still hunger that was not being met. And that's when I said, am I going to continue to do this? Just climb more, accomplishing more things, do more things for what? That's what came with the real question. And so I followed that little voice to find meaning and connection, to really go and discover what was important in my life, what was important to me. And that's where I took this search of studies and meeting many different leaders in different themes. And then I decided to share this with others, because I did find that there's a better way and a more joyful way of living. So that's why I created and founded Your Joyful Center.
Well, a lot of people would not have made that choice, Claudia. I mean, a lot of people who would get to be a CEO of an international company that had, this kind of reach 48 countries, they'd say, oh my gosh, no, I got to keep building. And the fact that you gave it up to found this particular Your Joyful Center, that's amazing in itself. There's not a lot of people who would do that. So tell us specifically what Your Joyful Center is.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I just want to mention that the change was not easy. At the beginning, I didn't go in thinking I was going to leave my successful position. But I will encourage, as you connect with Your Joyful Center, which I'll explain what it is now, it really becomes an easy, effortless choice. You don't feel that you're giving up much when you really feel the joy of what you're doing. So with that said, your Joyful Center, what it really is kind of your own center of power, your own center of wisdom. It can feel like a quiet empowerment, like an inner strength, a confidence that you are where you need to be, a confidence that things make sense around you. It's almost like a purpose. And it also becomes kind of an observation of your life with wonder. So it is really what, well, I'm a little scared of saying it, but it is like an orgasm. You know, when you're there, you can feel it. You know you're there. You have no question about it.
So how do people discover you? What is it that you help people do?
Well, what I say is I help people stop the unnecessary suffering of anxiety, stress, uncertainty, feeling of being stuck, and really break their own limitations, their own ceilings, in order to bring joy into their lives. So I help people discover themselves. I might start with discovering their own personality, their own tools that they have in this lifetime, and then a little deeper, their own emotions, because I do believe those two, the combination of those two, give meaning. They give you guidance. And once you get to know that, then you discover what is even underneath. I call the essence, and that is really your joyful center. To make it more tangible, or to more have more meaning in a real life, I'll give you an example of one of my clients. So one of my clients is a high executive. They work in the corporate world, and they're being surprised by their explosiveness. Some of them have talked to me about having panic attacks or not being able to sleep, restlessness, and they get surprised by it. So in a sense, they start getting scared of their own emotions. They don't know when it's going to come and how they control it. You know, they're used to controlling everything else in their life, and now they cannot even control their own flow. So with these people, I help them get to know those uncomfortable emotions. And of course, I'm there by their side, and get to know what those emotions are telling them. So instead of them fearing their own flow and their own guidance, they start getting to know it. And that really brings peace and a change of even behavior, how they are in their corporate world. And they find a new meaning to what they do. So that would be an example of what we will go through. Another example will be like, I get a lot of people that had just immigrated to this country, or they are the housewife. So they had given their life to their everyday, to their children, to their partner. They don't really have specific needs to develop financial support or other things, but they're lost in who they really are. So then we work on discovering that, their own value on their place, and then finding their own voice and purpose, so they can really feel they're part of this society.
You know, it's interesting that, and this may be changing, but maybe not because of the people that you're working with. If they come from another culture, they may not feel this way. But for years, you know, women dedicated themselves to their spouse and to their kids, as you say. And of course, I think I was ahead of my time too, Claudia, because I never did that. I had a husband that was really great, and he really had, he cared for the home life and the kids. I mean, he always worked and he had his own business, but he was really the one that liked being home. And but I was out always working and always interested in my career. And I think when you come from a different culture, that is the norm. I think that many women are brought up like that. You're to take care of your family and so forth. And then, of course, if they come to this country and they see all the women who are working and who are in positions of power, such as you were, it's kind of a culture shock to them, isn't it?
Well, there is the cultural shock, but there's also the sense of community. You know, how do they belong in community? They know their place in the family unit, and sometimes they don't value. They're so involved in their everyday doing that they don't value what they're worth to the family unit and to the community. Sometimes also it is about lack of support out there. You know, finding your own tribe, or finding people with commonalities just like you. So it is a very unique experience, and it happens in both the woman that stayed home and also the executive out there that got too involved in their work, that outside of work they really don't know who they are. Outside of work, outside of that title, they really get lost in a party, for example, if it's not about the work or their position. So it's interesting how it works. I mean, they might look like very different paths, but at the end, we work on the core of really discovering who they are and what is their voice and purpose without the titles, labels such as mother, daughter, financial consultant, whatever the labels are. It's who you truly are moment to moment.
Well, I totally get what you're saying about community, because I think having a community around you, whatever that looks like, I mean, they come in all different sizes and shapes, but whatever that community is around you is so important, because, you have things in common. You can go to each other for advice. So what are some of the steps that you take people on?
Well, usually I believe there's three main stages or things that we're working on through life. I categorize them. One is the sense of self-worth, which is really, again, as I've been talking about, finding your own value. It also has to do with security. If you're still struggling to pay your bills, or if you're having a lot of fights or struggles in your family life or with relationship, that is still in that stage of self-worth. It is about finding that stability, that security. Then there's a second stage, which is the sense of belonging. That's such an important part, and we forget a lot about it. But it is about your place in community with others, finding that, I mean, even if it's, your friends playing cards or going to a movie with certain girlfriends, or even for male, playing golf or, whatever it is, but it is finding that place where you relate to others and who you are in that. And then there's a third stage, which is the sense of contribution. Again, what is your purpose, your voice, and how do you want to contribute? I think at the end of our a very deep part of ourself, we want to contribute, we want to give. And so those are the three stages. I believe we are all working on all three in a little bit or part of it, but we usually are in one particular one majority, especially in different stages of our life. And for people over 50, usually they are looking for that sense of contribution. And sometimes if they feel a little lost in that, or they don't feel comfortable with that shift or that change, we have to go back to the sense of worth and the sense of belonging. I also speak a lot about how to handle change, because it seems that we all want security and being stable, and then we also want that adventure. I believe that in life we're always changing. So if we can shift our mind about being stable and make it more about how we continuously change and shift, then we'll be more comfortable with recreating ourselves or really being surprised by ourselves moment to moment. Maybe in little pieces, so it's not so uncomfortable, the surprise, but comfortable movement.
Well, I agree with you. I do think when you get to 50, it's kind of like, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like you said before, is that all there is? So they want to start contributing. What I'm curious about is, they can have a sense of belonging, they can have a sense of contribution, but if they don't have that sense of self-worth that you first mentioned, I wonder how much they can appreciate the other two, because you have to really feel good about yourself and what you represent before you can be good to anybody else. So I think that first one you mentioned of self-worth is probably one of the most important. I note that you also say that you're very good at finding the unseen seeds that are wanting to come through. How do you do that?
Yeah, that is my favorite. That actually brings me so much joy when I am with my clients, and I never cease to be surprised by it. what it is, I always had this gift since I was a little girl of seeing the unseen. Um, you know, it's almost like it appears to me as people speak, as